Kids, today's video is going to be called LGBT My Voice. And I'm going to do a series of videos on LGBT My Voice because I have lots of different voices in the LGBT community and a lot of history. Being someone that came out was forced out in 1983 and stayed out loud and proud since then. I've had the opportunity to change thousands of people's minds about what it is to be homosexual, and most of those in a good way. Some not so much, but most of them in a very positive way. So I have a rich history to share, but I also have it from many different perspectives. But today, I'm going to focus on one thing and one thing only because it's current and it's new. We're celebrating Pride at this time of the year. We do every year. And this year particularly has been very exciting because we've been making leaps and bounds of stride towards our ultimate goal, as I know it, which is equality. Equal rights, being treated equal. Now, that does not mean we are special. It just means we're equal. So, one thing that I know, being LGBT, is that we have, like everyone else and every other society has, a lot of mentally ill people in our community. And some of them are diagnosed seriously mentally ill, and some of them go undiagnosed. But they're out there in droves. And part of the reason they're out there in droves is because we have not had equal rights. And we've been fed by society a lot of ideas that make us self-loathing, for example, or have low self-esteem, or we've been bullied, or we've been raped, or you name it. Those things happen. And those scars have consequences. So besides, the regular mental illnesses, you have this kind of, and for my generation, growing up in the 80s, when everyone was dying off like the dinosaurs from AIDS before we had medication, a lot of people from my generation have kind of a PTSD and a survivor's guilt because we used to go to 5 or 6 funerals a week, every week for years. It was just like a Holocaust. AIDS was truly like a Holocaust. It was horrible for a lot of people, particularly if you lived in an area where there are lots of gay people. They were getting sick right, left, and center and dropping dead. And you had to you couldn't make friends fast enough. And you'd end up having to make new friends at every funeral you went to because the last friend you just made, you're at their funeral. So I remember those days, and those days were tough. So there's a lot of rich ripeness for mental illness. Now, the one thing about mental illness and being gay is there's stigmas. There's stigmas for mental illness in every society. It's the one thing that's universal to man. Now, if you're homophobic, we can turn around and say, oh, you're a bigot. Or if you don't like black people, you're racist. Or if you don't like this, you're this. Or you don't like that, you're that. But with mental illness, there's this universal aversion to mental illness. And there's no name that's called when people run away from the mentally ill. And we need to come up with a name. But what we need to do even more than that is we need to embrace our mentally ill brothers and sisters and let them be part of our community and be part of them. And that would be a huge breakthrough that we could do that would be so important that if we get our, which we're going to get our or equal treatment. That's going to happen. We're going to have equality. So my question has been for the last 5 or 6 years, then what? What are we going to do with all this energy? We've been fighting this war for so long, and if there's no more war to fight, what are we going to do? So starting about a year ago, we started putting a lot more energy into the trans community, because the trans community has kind of been hiding in the background as the lesbians and the gay men have been charging forward, and with the banner and screaming and yelling and carrying on. The trans community has kind of been swept behind their kind of they're serving the meals and cleaning up after the drama and the mess. And now we're pushing them to the front and saying, trans equality is different from gay equality because. So here's their set of issues. This is unique to trans. But what we can do for not just the LGBT community, but for the entire community of mentally ill people, is really set an example, not only with community-based organizations and community-based understandings, but we could really start tapping away and destroying those stigmas that we have of mentally ill people. And they're getting worse, these stigmas, recently. With all these shootings that have been going on the last 10, 15 years, it's become very chic to blame the mentally ill on each and every one of them. Now you have to ask yourself a logical question. And this seems to be pushed to the side. No one really talks about this. Everybody talks about, oh, don't take my guns. Don't take my guns. The guns aren't the problem. It's these people, these bad people that get the guns. Now, it's been 15 years. And if you're going to blame all the mentally ill people on all the shootings, first of all, you have to ask yourself a logical question. Does everybody that shoots anybody mentally ill, that would make our entire military mentally ill and our police force mentally ill? That's kind of tough. I guess they could be. Now, the next thing is, for those people that support gun rights, well, how is it that if there's background checks, these mentally ill people are getting guns, and then somebody is poking them, or people are poking them so hard and pushing them right to the edge of to the breaking point, to where they snap, and it happens over and over and over and over and over again. So who's giving them these guns, and then who's pushing them so hard that they snap? And where's the healthcare, or where's the community-based understanding, or the community-based programs to help them not snap? I don't buy that everybody that shoots all these people in movie theaters and stuff are all mentally ill. By the time you see them on TV, they're highly drugged and they look mentally ill. But there's a difference between taking drugs, or being forced to take drugs, and actually being mentally ill. You can just be pissed off, or you can just be an asshole. That's the fact. So, myself, I've been diagnosed with schizoaffective bipolar disorder with complications. My complications are seasonal affective disorder, adopted child syndrome, anxiety disorders, panic attacks disorder, and seasonal affective disorder. Morbid depression. That was it. Morbid depression. So people are scared of people like me with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia and bipolar disorder really freak people out. Just the words, just the concept. But they don't understand what it is. They don't understand how it affects people. And they don't really understand how people with mental illnesses really live and really react. It's not as scary as it seems. And I know lots of mentally ill people that don't even realize they're mentally ill. And since I'm on medication and I have been doing self-therapy my entire life, and I've also been in and out of professional therapists, I know the process of therapy. I also know the process of monitoring oneself and also monitoring the people around you. And I can tell you, there's a lot of batshit crazy people that think they're totally sane because no one's ever given them a insurance code that says that they're mentally ill, so therefore they feel they're okay. And they're not. And they come from all walks of life, not just gay people, straight people, young people, old people, so many people. And why can't we, as the LGBT community, start the process of looking at ourselves and healing ourselves and looking at our brothers and sisters? First, let's take the easy ones, the ones that are diagnosed. And let's find out how we can break down those stigmas. Like we broke down the stigma for HIV, which has been a hard stigma to break down. And we're breaking down the stigmas for transsexuals that, a lot of people, frankly, didn't understand, including a lot in the LGBT community. Well, it's hard work, but we can do it. And that's what I'm hoping our next trailblazing event will be, that we really work on taking down the stigma of mental illness and learning about what it's like to live with mental illness and what it's like to be in relationships with people with mental illness, and what's the most positive thing, the most positive aspects, because there's very positive aspects to being mentally ill. It's very liberating, especially when you're diagnosed. It's extremely liberating. And there's a lot good that can happen if people weren't so scared, including the people that have mental illness, because they've been taught to be scared, just like they were taught that it was bad to be gay, and they taught that, society's taught them all these other things, all these other stigmas. Those things still apply. So this is something I think that we are uniquely capable of doing, because we have a very talented, very creative pool of a lot of open-minded people that will push themselves, even if it's past their comfort zone. They will push past their comfort zone and grasp an understanding, just like we've done with the trans group. Because most gay people are not transsexual, so we can't understand what's going on inside their head. We've had to stop. We had to push past our comfort zone. We had to listen to our trans brothers and sisters and say, okay, tell us what it is. Tell us what you're going through. Tell us what it's like. How can we help? How can we make this better? How can we be supportive? We've done this over and over and over. We did it with HIV. We're doing it with trans people. The next thing we need to do it with our own mentally ill. And then everyone else is mentally ill. We need to take away these stigmas so that everyone has liberty and justice for all. For all. And what part of for all do we not understand? All. We can't, as a group, leave anyone behind. We can't afford that. We can't make the mistakes that the blacks made. And I don't mean this in a racial way, but when the black community was fighting for their rights, they wanted equal rights, but they wanted kind of separately instead of just equal. And they never got out of that fighting mode. And when they got the legislation passed, instead of calming down, they were still in that aggressive fighting mode, which was very off-putting to a lot of people. And it still is to this day, because a lot of them still are, particularly the older ones. And if you look for a problem, and if you look for it hard enough, you can create it yourself. And that's what I see, where their movement went off the tracks. But they were, groundbreaking. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have our movement. So, I give them props for being out there first and fighting first. It was the women, and then it was the blacks, and now it's us. Next thing, We got to get our trans brothers and sisters there, and then we got to work on the mentally ill. And I know that we, uniquely as a group, can do this, and we can bring everyone together on this one thing, because everyone all around the world, from every socioeconomic, color, race, religion, nationality, region, everything has mentally ill people in their communities. And they're suffering, even in this country, even in the most advanced countries, they're suffering from a lot of stigmas. Tell me what you think. I think it's important. Talk to you later.